Right, good morning, students. So, in the yesterday class, we discussed regarding some of the crystal defects. So, classification of crystal defects and stoichiometric defects observed in covalent compounds, stoichiometric defects observed in ionic compounds. Those we discussed in yesterday class, and some non-stoichiometric defects also we discussed. That is metal excess defects. Metal excess defects due to anionic vacancy and metal excess defects due to extra cation we discussed. Now, in today's class, we are going to discuss about metal deficiency defects. Let us see here now. Right. So, metal deficiency defects. So, what are metal deficiency defects? In which type of compound this is observed? See, the condition required to exhibit metal deficiency defects are in the given compound, the metal atom should have the ability to exhibit a variable oxidation state. If the metal has ability to exhibit a variable oxidation state, then such compounds can exhibit metal deficiency defects. Let us see. I will take an example. Fe 0.96. So this is a non-stoichiometric compound. Fe 0.96 means the same we can represent like this. Fe 96O100. Actually, exact representation is this. This means that for one atom of oxygen, only 0.96 atoms of iron will be there. That means there is no exact stoichiometry in a simple ratio between oxygen and iron. So this is just for simplicity I wrote here. So for one atom of oxygen, 0.96 atoms of iron is there. There is no stoichiometry. And compared to non-metal atoms, the number of metal atoms are less present here. So that's why this is known as metal deficiency defects. Metal atoms are less than compared to non-metal atoms. Let us see. If you take the lattice of iron oxide, so in iron oxide, Fe plus 2 and O minus 2 ions are present. Just an altered position I will present here. Fe plus 2, O minus 2. Fe plus 2, O minus 2. This is O minus 2. Fe plus 2, O minus 2. This is the lattice of iron oxide. Now, how they will show metal deficiency defect here is, some of the metal ions will miss from the lattice. So here I have eliminated one Fe plus 2. So now metal ions are less than compared to non-metal ions. So it is a metal deficiency defect. But one thing, on the whole, electrical neutrality should be maintained in the lattice. So in order to maintain the electrical neutrality, some of the neighboring ions can exhibit a higher valence. Now, instead of plus 2, this can exhibit a plus 3, Fe plus 3 state. I'll take one more. Instead of plus 2 here, This also can exhibit plus 3. That means these two iron atoms can exhibit a plus 3 state instead of a plus 2 state. Now electrical neutrality is maintained. Electrical neutrality is maintained and the number of metal ions are less than compared to the number of non-metal ions. Now the defects arises are known as metal deficiency defects. So once again, so these are the defects which arises due to the presence of less number of metal ions than compared to non-metal ions. And the condition required here to exhibit a metal deficiency defect is the metal has the ability to exhibit a variable oxidation states. That means the metal should exhibit two or more than two oxidation states. Then only this type of defects can be observed. So now here if you take iron oxide as an example, now this iron oxide contains Fe plus 2 ions as well as Fe plus 3 ions. So this type of defects arises are known as metal deficiency defects. Now based on this even some simple problems also they are asking. Just I'll show an example by taking the same. Now Fe 0.96O, this contains both Fe plus 2 ions as well as Fe plus 3 ions. Now what is the percentage of Fe plus 2? What is the percentage of Fe plus 3 in this iron oxide? Now the question is calculate the percentage of calculate the percentage of Fe plus 2 and Fe plus 3. Calculate the percentage of Fe plus 2 and Fe plus 3 in FeO, that is Fe 0.96O. This is the question. Let us see here how to solve this question. Right. See, we'll solve this problem based on one condition. What the condition is? In any lattice, the total charge of all cations is always equal to the total charge of all anions. Based on that condition, we'll solve this. Now here, let us see the solution. Let number of Fe plus 2 ions is equal to, sorry, Fe plus 3, I'll take care. Let the number of Fe plus 3 ions is X and number of Fe plus 2 ions is equal to total 0.96 minus X. So these are the number of Fe plus 3 and Fe plus 2 ions in the lattice. Okay, and number of O minus 2 ions in the lattice is equal to 1. Now the condition is in any lattice the total charge of all cations is equal to the total charge of all anions. The total charge of all cations is always equal to the total charge of all anions in any lattice. Based on this condition, we will solve this problem. So I will calculate total charge of all cations here. Fe plus 3, how many atoms are there? X. So 3x. Valence is 3 and number of atoms is X. Total charge is 3x. Plus 2 into Fe plus 2, charge is plus 2 and number of ions is 0.96 minus x is equal to number of ions of O minus 2 is 1, charge is 2. Now, so 3x minus 2x is nothing but x plus. This becomes 1.92. 1.92, which is equal to 2. Then x is equal to 0.08. So number of atoms of Fe plus 3 is 0.08 out of 0.96 atoms. Out of 0.96 atoms, 0.08 atoms of Fe plus 3 is there. Now from this I will calculate percentage of Fe plus 2, sorry, plus 3. So percentage of Fe plus 3 is equal to nothing but number of Fe plus 3 ions divided by total number of ions into 100. So this is the percentage of Fe plus 3, yeah, which is equal to number of Fe plus 3 ions, how much you got? 0.08 divided by total number of ions of iron is 0.96 into 100. So this is equal to 800 by 96. So let us see here. So approximately you can get here 8.3 percentage. This is 8.3 percentage. This is Fe. So percentage of Fe plus 3. See once again here. Fe 0.96. In that we have to calculate percentage of Fe plus 2 and Fe plus 3. Let the number of Fe plus 3 ions is x. Then the number of Fe plus 2 ions is 0.96 minus x. And number of oxide ions is 1. The condition here is the total charge of all cations is always equal to total charge of all anions in any lattice. The same I have applied here. So 3x, this is the charge of Fe plus 3 ions. 2 into 0.986 minus x, this is charge of Fe plus 2 ions. Then if you simplify, this becomes 3x minus 2x, that is x. Then 2 into 0.96, that is 192. Then x is equal to 0.08. Means out of 0.96 atoms of iron, 0.08 atoms of Fe plus 3 is present. Therefore, percentage of Fe plus 3 is equal to number of Fe plus 3 ions by total number of ions into 100. So which is equal to 0.08 by 0.96 into 100. That is 800 by 96, which is 8.3 percentage. Then percentage of Fe plus 2 is 100 minus 8.3, which is equal to 91.7 percentage. So this is the way of calculation of percentage of Fe plus 2 and Fe plus 3 ions present in the lattice. Okay, right. Now, in the same model, I'll solve one more question here. This is also given in a textbook only. So now I'll take an example, Ni 0.980. This is also a non-stoichiometric compound. Now here we have to calculate the percentage of Zn plus 2 and the percentage of Zn plus 3. Okay, right. Let the number of Zn plus 3 ions is X. Let the number of Zn plus 2 ions is 0.98 minus X. Number of oxidants is 1 as it is. Now this is same. The total charge of all cations is equal to total charge of all anions. Now this is equal to 1.96, which is 0.04. So number of Ni plus 3 ions is 0.04. Then percentage of Zn plus 3 is equal to number of Zn plus 3 ions by total number of ions into 100. This is 0.04. This is nothing but 400 by 0.98. So there is 400 by 98. Just simplify that. So you can get 4% here, approximately 4.01. So 4.01%, that is approximately, we'll take it as 4%. So percentage of Zn plus 3 is equal to 4%. Then percentage of Zn plus 2 is equal to 96%. Like this, any problem we'll solve in the same manner. So here we got Zn plus 3%, 4%, and Zn plus 2%, 96%. Like this, we'll solve any problem. Now let us see. I'll give one more example. Just you try yourself this one. Cu 1.8 Cu 1.8O. Actually, cuprous oxide formula is Cu2O. This is the stoichiometric formula. But instead of Cu2O, I have mentioned the formula as Cu 1.8O. Now, this consists of Cu plus 1 and Cu plus 2. Cuprous and cupric ions are present. Now, just calculate a percentage of Cu plus 1 and Cu plus 2. Same, just like this only. Take a number of atoms of Cu plus 2 as X. Cu plus 1 will become 1.8 minus X, and just equalize the total charge of all cations and all anions. You can get the percentage of Cu plus 2 as well as Cu plus 1. Same manner. If they give any non-stoichiometric compound, then it consists of metal ion in two different oxidation states. If you want to calculate the percentage of these metal ions in the compound, then you just equalize the total charge of all cations is equal to total charge of all anions. By comparing like this, you can get percentage of both metal ions. Okay, so this is regarding metal deficiency defects. Now I'll go for another one. Next one, impurity defects. Right. So what are these impurity defects? Under what conditions this impurity defects arises? Say, when a crystal is allowed to crystallize from its solution in the presence of another crystal, in such cases, we can get this type of impurity defects. For example, when NaCl is crystallized, in presence of Sr plus 2, means SrCl2. During the crystallization of NaCl from the solution, if it contains a small amount of strontium chloride, then we can get impurity defects. Similarly, when AgCl is allowed to crystallize in the presence of cadmium chloride, then also we can get impurity defects. Then how these impurity defects arises? Let us say, if we take a NaCl lattice, now in NaCl lattice, here Na plus and Cl minus ions are present in alternate positions. Let us, this is as Na plus, Cl minus. So this is NaCl lattice. So when this NaCl is allowed to crystallize in the presence of strontium, some of the Na plus ions are replaced by strontium ions. So what is the valence of strontium? Sr plus 2. What is the valence of Na plus 1? So always electrical neutrality should be maintained. Since electrical neutrality is required, one strontium can replace two Na plus ions. The charge of one strontium ion is equal to the charge of two sodium ions. That means in the lattice, two Na plus ions are removed by one strontium ion. So one strontium ion can replace two sodium ions, but occupy only one lattice site and another lattice site is vacant. Each strontium ion can replace two sodium ions from the lattice, but out of the two lattice sites, only one lattice site will be occupied by strontium ion and one lattice site is vacant. Okay, now what the defect arises here is known as impurity defect. Means these are the defects which arises due to missing of or due to replacement of ions by the foreign ions and occupying the same lattice sites. But now here in this case, a strontium ion can replace two sodium ions, but out of the two lattice sites, only one lattice site will be occupied by strontium and another lattice site is vacant. Another lattice site here is vacant. Now the defects arises here is known as impurity defects. Now, suppose if AgCl is allowed to crystallize in the presence of cadmium chloride, then also two Ag plus ions are replaced by one cadmium ion by leaving one cationic vacancy. This type of defects are known as impurity defects. Now, based on this, just one problem I'll ask here. What was given in NCERT textbook only, which is nothing but NaCl is doped. See, what is meant by this doping is nothing but doping means the process of introduction of the foreign atoms, means other than crystal lattice what the ions are there. Other than that, if you have introduced the other atoms, the process of introducing the atoms means other atoms than the lattice, that process is called as doping. So NaCl is doped with 10 power minus 3 mole percent, 10 power minus 3 mole percent of SrCl2. NaCl is doped with 10 power minus 3 mole percent of SrCl2. Then calculate the number of cationic vacancy. What fraction of cations are unoccupied or cationic vacancies? Okay, right here now, simple. Say any defect arises, always electrical neutrality should be maintained. That is, here one strontium ion can replace two sodium ions. As you know, Sr plus 2 is equal to 2Na plus. One strontium ion can replace two sodium ions but occupy only one lattice site by leaving one cationic vacancy. That is, each strontium ion, each Sr plus 2 produce one cationic vacancy. See once again. One strontium ion can replace two sodium ions but occupy only one site and one cationic vacancy is present. That means for each strontium ion, one cationic vacancy will be produced. Then number of Sr plus 2 doped is equal to number of cationic vacancies. So just a minute. So number of Sr plus 2 doped is equal to how much? 10 power minus 3 mole percentage. That is equal to 10 power minus 3 by 100 moles. This is equal to 10 to the power of minus 5 moles, which is equal to 10 power minus 5 into mole means 6 into 10 power 23. Yeah, this is equal to 6 into 10 to the power of 18. Okay, therefore number of Sr plus 2 doped is equal to number of cationic vacancies. Therefore number of cationic vacancies is equal to 6 into 10 to the power of 18. See once again. So when NaCl is doped with strontium chloride, each strontium ion can replace two sodium ions, but out of the two vacancies, only one site will be occupied by strontium by leaving one cationic vacancy. That is, each strontium ion can create one cationic vacancy. Now let us see how many strontium ions are doped here. 10 power minus 3 mole percent. 10 power minus 3 mole percent means 10 power minus 3 by 100, which is 10 power minus 5 moles. That is equal to 6 into 10 to the power of 18. So number of strontium ions doped is equal to 6 into 10 power 18. Hence number of cationic vacancies is equal to same 10 to the power of 6 into 10 power 18. So this is regarding impurity defects. This is total regarding different types of crystal defects. See in brief the total once again. Crystal defects are classified into two types: point defects, line defects. Again, line defects are further classified into two types: skew dislocation, edge dislocation. So that we will not discuss as per our syllabus. We will discuss regarding only point defects. Right. Again, these point defects are further divided into three types: stoichiometric defects, non-stoichiometric defects, and impurity defects. Come to the first one, stoichiometric defects. Stoichiometric defects are observed in non-ionic compounds as well as ionic compounds. In the first one we will go, non-ionic compounds. So this is stoichiometric defects in non-ionic compounds. These are also called as intrinsic defects or thermodynamic defects. Stoichiometric defects are called as. These are further classified in two types: vacancy defects, interstitial defects. See, in vacancy defects, some of the particles are missing from the lattice sides. Since some of the particles are missing from the lattice sides and there is no change in volume, the density of the lattice decreases. In case of interstitial defects, some of the particle number lattice points remains as it is in their original position. In addition to that, some new particles will be introduced into the interstitial sites. That means the density of the lattice increases. These are the defects observed in non-ionic compounds. In case of ionic compounds, these defects are further classified into two types: Schottky defects and Frenkel defects. See, if equal number of cations and anions are missing from the lattice, they are called as Schottky defects. If a particle is missing from the lattice site and occupying the interstitial site, then it is called as Frenkel defect. See, Schottky defects are observed in the compounds with a high coordination number and size of cation and anion are nearly same. Frenkel defects are observed in the compounds in which there is a large difference between the size of cation and anion with low coordination number. Due to Schottky defects, the density of lattice decreases. Due to Frenkel defects, the density of lattice remains same. So this is regarding Schottky and Frenkel defects. So this is about stoichiometric defects. Non-stoichiometric defects, again these are further classified into two types: metal excess defects, metal deficiency defects. See, metal excess defects are again of two types: due to anionic vacancy, due to extra cation. When NaCl is heated in the presence of vapors of sodium, then some Cl minus will leave from the lattice, and in order to maintain electrical neutrality, that anionic vacancies are occupied by electrons which are called as F centers. Since due to anionic vacancy, number of metal ions are more than the number of non-metal ions, hence these are known as metal excess defects. So the same type of defects are observed when KCl is heated in the presence of potassium vapors, or when rubidium chloride is heated in the presence of rubidium vapors, like that. Nothing but what the flame test we are doing. In flame test, we will get non-stoichiometric effects. That sodium salts gives a golden yellow color, lithium salts gives a pink color, potassium salts gives a purple or lilac, or that is violet color, like that. Okay. Right. Now, metal excess defects due to extra cation. So when zinc oxide is heated, Zn plus 2 ions diffuse into the lattice and occupy the interstitial sites. O minus 2 ions are oxidized to give oxygen gas and electrons, and that electrons also diffuse into the lattice and occupying the neighboring sites. As a result, electrical neutrality is maintained. Now lattice points remains as it is. Now in the interstitial sites, some extra cations, that is Zn plus 2 ions, and electrons will occupy. As a result, number of metal ions are more than compared to number of non-metal ions. So we can get metal excess defects. Remaining metal deficiency defects and impurity defects that we just now discussed in the today's class only. Okay, this is regarding total crystal defects. Okay, now so this crystal defects is an important topic both for PUC as well as objective. Now we'll go for another one. Let's see. Electrical properties of solids. Right. Electrical properties and magnetic properties of solids. Both will discuss now. See, depending on conductivity. The solids are classified into three types. What they are? Conductors, semiconductors, and third one is insulators. So depending on the conductivity range, the substances are classified into three types. They are conductors, semiconductors, and insulators. See, if the conductivity lies in the range of 10 to the power of 7 to 10 to the power of 4 ohm inverse, meter inverse, or Simon per meter. See, the conductivity range of a solid lies in the range of 10 power 7 to 10 power 4 ohm inverse, meter inverse, that is a Simon per meter, then those are considered as conductors. If the conductivity range lies in between 10 power 4 to 10 power minus 6 ohm inverse per meter, that is per ohm per meter or Simon per meter, then they are called as semiconductors. Okay, next insulators. If the conductivity lies in between 10 power minus 10 to 10 power minus 20 ohm inverse, meter inverse, then these are considered as insulators. So the order of conductivity is conductors greater than insulators, semiconductors is greater than insulators. And this conductivity of these solids can be explained based on band theory of solids. So band theory of solids. So based on band theory of solids, we can explain, right? Based on band theory of solids, we can explain the conductivity of solids. Okay, now see here. What is this band theory? See, nothing but according to molecular orbital theory, what you have studied in the first PUC chemical bonding chapter, MOT. Okay, as per this molecular orbital theory, the atomic orbitals present in the valence shell of an atom having a same energy combine to form a set of molecular orbitals. If two atomic orbitals are combined, then we can get one bonding molecular orbital and one anti-bonding molecular orbitals, which differ by some energy gap. Like that, in case of elements, the orbitals present in the valence shell of an atom undergo intermixing having nearly same energy and forms a set of molecular orbitals. And this set of molecular orbitals having same energy exists as a group, which is known as a band. Then, as I said, when two atomic orbitals are combined, we can get two molecular orbitals, one with less energy, one with more energy. Okay, let us assume here this is a set of molecular orbitals having lower energy, and this is a set of molecular orbitals which are having higher energy. So this is nothing but energy here. Now, the set of molecular orbitals which are having lower energy and contains electrons, this is called as valence band. The set of molecular orbital having lower energy and having unpaired electrons is called valence band, and the set of molecular orbitals which are which are having higher energy, which are unoccupied or vacant, this is called conduction band. See once again. So when the atomic orbitals having same energy are intermixed, we can get two set of orbitals. So one set of orbitals having less energy and having electrons is known as valence band, and another set of orbitals having higher energy which are vacant, this is called as conduction band. Okay, now, so what the difference between these conductors, semiconductors and insulators is the gap, energy gap between these two bands, valence band and conduction band. The energy gap between this valence band and conduction band is nothing but a forbidden energy gap. So the energy gap between valence band and conduction band is known as a forbidden energy gap. See, in case of insulators, the forbidden gap is more. Since the forbidden gap is more, what the electrons are present here, these electrons will not jump from valency band to conduction band. It is difficult. Since it is difficult for moving electrons from valence band to conduction band, so these are insulators, means they will not conduct electricity. Now the same if you take metals. So this is a conduction band and this is valence band. This is in case of metals. See, in case of metals, the valence band as well as conduction band both will overlap with one another. Now, since valence band and conduction band overlap with each other, the electrons can move freely from valence band to conduction band. As a result, the conductivity will be more. Now come to the second one, semiconductors. In case of semiconductors, the forbidden energy gap will be less between a valence band and conduction band. See, the conduction band contains unoccupied orbitals. The valence band contains orbitals with unpaired electrons. Since here the energy gap is less, the electrons can move from valence band to conduction band. Means not all, only some electrons can move. Means the electrons which are having energy of this forbidden energy gap, that electron can jump from valence band to conduction band. As a result, they can conduct electricity. So, in case of conductors, the higher unoccupied conduction band and the lower occupied valence band both overlap with each other. So, electrons can move freely from valence band to conduction band. That is, electrical conductivity is more. In case of insulators, the energy gap between occupied valence band and unoccupied conduction band is more. As a result, electrons cannot move freely from valence band to conduction band. That's why these will not conduct electricity. Next, in case of semiconductors, the electrical conductivity lies in between metals and insulators. That is, the forbidden energy gap is less in case of semiconductors. So, by absorbing a little amount of energy, electrons can jump from valence band to conduction band easily. Okay. Then, so this is regarding band theory of solids. Based on we can explain the electrical conductivity of insulators, semiconductors as well as conductors. Now, So if you compare conductors and insulators, means metals. In case of conductors, with increasing temperature, electrical conductivity decreases. Whereas in case of semiconductors, with increasing temperature, conductivity increases. What the reason is? In case of conductors, with increasing temperature, the oscillations of electrons increases. As a result, conductivity decreases. In case of semiconductors, with increasing temperature, the kinetic energy of these electrons increases and they can overcome this forbidden energy gap easily. As a result, the conductivity increases. Okay, so in case of conductors, with increasing temperature, conductivity decreases. In case of semiconductors, with increasing temperature, conductivity increases. Right now, as per our syllabus, we are going to learn about semiconductors. Semiconductors, what are different types of semiconductors? Those we'll discuss here. Semiconductors. See, these semiconductors are further divided into two types. Intrinsic semiconductor. Intrinsic semiconductors, and one more is extrinsic semiconductors. Intrinsic semiconductors and extrinsic semiconductors. What are intrinsic semiconductors? See, the semiconductivity due to pure substance is known as intrinsic semiconductors. Means the substances like silicon, germanium, like this, nothing but 14th group elements. So 14th group elements like silicon and germanium can exhibit intrinsic semiconductivity. Then what are extrinsic semiconductors? If the semiconductivity is due to the introduction of a foreign atoms, then the conductivity, then those conductors are called as extrinsic semiconductors. Again, these extrinsic semiconductors are further divided into two types, that is N-type semiconductors and P-type semiconductors. And these extrinsic semiconductors are obtained by the process called as doping. So doping is nothing but the process of introduction of other atoms other than the intrinsic semiconductors. That process is called doping. Then, so what are N-type semiconductors? What are P-type semiconductors? How these are obtained? Then what about the conductivity of these semiconductors? That we will discuss in tomorrow class. Okay, thank you.